Thank you for believing in me. I love you guys too. Okay, so this is going to possibly turn into a bit of an experiment. I don't actually know what I'm going to say. But in the event of like me getting lost, I've written down some questions to ask myself to keep myself on track. Okay, so let me get organized here. I'm going to be characterizing the questions as you guys, even though it's me asking it. I'm going to write it down and try to like draw a bunch of stuff and answer it below itself.
Does anybody have a Leatherman? Leatherman? Anyone?
No, don't applaud. Does anyone have a Leatherman? No, multi-tool.
Don't throw it.
Thank you.
It's true.
This is already going according to plan.
Oh, here we go.
We're demonstrating the qualities of tape right now. All right, awesome. Thank you guys. Can we get this light down a little bit? I'm feeling I'm in wild animal mode, and this is a little bit feeling intense. Okay, we'll work with it. It's okay. So for the first question that I'm guessing might be on your minds is...
Could you please turn the tablet a little bit this way?
Okay, back to our first question. Sure. Thank you.
This whole show is being
Please hold on a moment. All right, back to the plan. Well, we'll just keep rotating it.
correct.
What is this?
This is weirdness. Hooray, planning. So this is weirdness. Right now, I'm pretty far down a very strange decision tree. Strange and bad, and I feel very weird and very uncomfortable. And I'm trying to roll with it in the best way that I know how to, which is talking about it. So this is weirdness. Let me check my notes. So weirdness can happen for a lot of reasons, and it doesn't always seem like weirdness. It seems like explainable things that either they just don't make sense, but it doesn't seem like it's due to like these secret reasons that it actually is. Let me retract for a second. Just experience the weirdness, it's okay. I'm experiencing it like very strongly right now. So this is like this experience we can all share in. I'm trying to create an experience for you guys, basically. So with these, if you're weird and you're trying not to be, you end up making a series of increasingly weird decisions to cover up the weirdness. And like that's all well and fine until some of the weirdness gets out. And once it gets out, you are past the point of like if you're very far down a weirdness decision tree, you're going to have a very difficult time explaining how it happened in any way that sounds like a reason or seems to make sense. Second, just rolling with it. We're just doing it. See, this is the problem, is I'm trying to do too many things. I've got 3 fucking pens up here, like 8 pieces of paper, and a banana. And I don't know how to make sense of this. So I don't expect you to know either. I know what to do. There we go. This is it. I didn't have to turn this one over. There we go. Sometimes you just gotta turn something over and look at the other side. Alright, so when you try to resist something, you try to resist discomfort or weirdness or being scared, or at any time, like weirdness is created when the way something is conflicts with the way that it seems like it should be. So I made a series of decisions that, anytime you find yourself in a weird situation, it is probably the end result of a series of like individual weird decisions that sort of compounded on themselves to lead to that point. If I'm being totally honest with myself, the first like major decision where I was like ignoring large swaths of reality was deciding to get on this boat, or deciding to, based on what I know about myself, it was a categorically bad decision, regardless of how it ends up working out. Just if I'm speaking completely in terms of like strategy, it was a pretty bad idea. Like it would be akin to taking your kids to a midnight splash deck pool party during a full moon if you are a vampire, werewolf, mermaid with toasters for arms. If you saw something like that happening, it would probably seem like, what is this beast doing? Doesn't it know what it is? Why would it make this decision? But it's not always that easy. See, if you're a vampire, werewolf, mermaid with toasters for arms, you've got a lot of internal conflict already. And add to the fact that like in this scenario you've got kids also, and you're trying to provide for the needs of other people as well as your own. You're going to have a hard time doing things like going out in the daytime to take your kids to the pool. So maybe you try to do it at night, but you forget that it's a full moon and you're a werewolf, and just shit gets weird and you end up chasing your children, yelling, "Daddy's just trying to have fun," and "I'm just trying to love you, hold still." And this is horrifying to bystanders. And you probably realize this, and it makes the situation worse. It gets even worse than that, though. It isn't always as simple as being a vampire, werewolf, mermaid with toasters for arms. The main benefit, if you're a vampire, werewolf, mermaid with toasters for arms, is you at least look weird. Everybody, like, if something happens, you can trace it back to, you can tell a story pretty easily with the pieces you can see. Whereas in reality, like, most people suffer from a like secret variety of weirdness. We are all, I'm beginning to suspect, or at least I want to believe, that probably everybody has these like weird things that seem totally unintelligible or unexplainable to anybody else, and we're all striving for this like illusory composite that we think is normal. It doesn't actually exist, but it's just like this composite image created from overlaying all of the possible ways it is to be weird and making like one thing with it, and then everybody's trying to be that thing, but nobody can fully encompass it, and we all feel like weird or failures all the time. But nobody, like, I know that this is very uncomfortable for me being up here. I don't want to admit to being a weirdo. I feel like I have no choice at this point. It's fairly obvious. So I'm just trying to sort of explain it and provide context as maybe an act of mercy to you, because you have to be in this with me. And I'm trying to be as ethical as I can about the way I progress through it. So I've written one thing on this board. Seems like a few things, but one major thing. Maybe it's time to write more. Okay, so. I'm writing your questions in all caps because I assume that you are alarmed. I'm not entirely sure. I'm still trying to figure it out for myself. But I at least have some maybe interesting questions or ideas about it, which I'm hoping to be able to discuss. So, it seems like there are a limited number of possible explanations of things that seem like they make sense, ways that it seems like things should be. So if you imagine, like, I'm sure people are aware of a variety of ways it's possible to be or to be weird. You know, we've got some things here. You can be all different in these ways. Maybe you're like a rectangle or something that's sort of a weird square. Like, it's easy to understand on that level that like there are differences between people. The trouble arises when the reality of people, at least of me, is like I'm more like this. And if the possibilities that the world is seeing or that I'm seeing or anybody, like if we're trying to explain what this is, something like, I mean, you're sort of just trying to find the best fit, right? You're looking at all these things, all right, I know what these things are, and this is really confusing. Which one of these things is this? It's gonna sort of be like, okay, these parts make sense. Maybe like, yeah, I get this, but all this shit out here is just gonna, it's invisible. It goes like behind things. It's like on the floor. It's not going to fit into any of this. And I think, or I hope, selfishly, that we are all some degree of this. Maybe some of us are less squiggly. It's all, but none of them are the same. and it create like there's the advice to be yourself. You like I've done a lot of like searching for self-help because I'm somebody who's in desperate need of help, just very, very specific, weird help that like, the questions that I wonder don't seem to be out there. There aren't those answers. And the answer I get is often stuff like, yeah, be yourself. So I've been trying to do that. This is sort of an answer to this also. Like, how does this happen? This is possibly the end result of me trying to be myself, being honest, and realizing that that is more difficult than it seems. That, like, there's the issue of being honest, and there's the issue of being able to explain yourself in any intelligible way, which I don't have the ability to do, but I'm nonetheless trying. So maybe that's the lesson. Keep trying. It'll stay interesting. It can't get much weirder, right? I mean, maybe it can, but then we're at least exploring new frontiers. We're discovering things. So I was thinking, I stayed up all night, first of all. My original plan, I actually did have a plan. I had several plans, and all of them fell through because I realized sometime around 2 in the morning yesterday, or last night, that I don't know what I'm talking about, and I was trying to write out things in a way that made it sound like I did. I think that's something that happens when you have an audience. You sort of feel like, I don't know, maybe you deserve an audience, but you're also scared that you don't. And so you try to say like worthwhile, insightful things, and if you get super far down that path before realizing that you don't know what you're doing, you're going to end up staying up all night and becoming a wild animal on stage in front of a theater audience. And so yeah, I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to cope, and I think that that's probably what we're all doing to some degree. Maybe not quite as to such a just extreme degree as I am, but maybe we can learn something here. If I can't tell you anything worthwhile, at least maybe we can like explore these ideas. So one question I was wondering is, what would it be like if I was able to just totally be myself? Or like, how do you make this shit make sense? And it seems to me, and again, I do not know what I'm talking about. This is just conjecture, speculation. Maybe we can talk about it later in a context where it's safe to be weird. But it seems that the issue is we're trying to make things simple when they aren't. That's another one of those conflicts with like things seem weird when they don't seem like they should be. That there's this desire to simplify things because with simplicity comes comfort. And I think we're all just trying to be comfortable. And we're all vastly uncomfortable, at least I am a vast majority of the time. Trying to come up with things like, we all come up with coping mechanisms, things we know how to do, buttons we know how to push, that produce a marginal amount of comfort in a very confusing, very not simple world. And especially if you're in that situation, stuff like uncertainty seems especially scary because nobody wants to see that this is the reality of things. I don't want to look at myself and know that I'm this. I want to be this. This is the cool thing to be. I mean, it's a triangle, so it's sort of abstract, but like let's pretend that triangles are cool. And this is what I'm trying to do. And so it's confusing for me and for everybody when I'm living my life as if I'm this, when I'm actually this. The problem is it's not really like, even if I try to live my life as if I'm this, I don't know how to make sense of this or make it make sense to anybody else. And so I guess it seems like a good way to proceed from here, since this is the place we find ourselves, is just to ask questions or to wonder, to at least even know that this sort of shape exists, or whatever other shape. There are as many ways to be weird as, I don't even know. It's probably an infinite degree of weirdness. But maybe if we're aware that this is happening, we can start looking for it and decreasing that that tendency to try to oversimplify things to the point where they all conform to like one shape or a set of shapes. There's an infinite variety of ways it's possible to be, and that might reduce the like feeling that you should do this. You know, I feel like we all get that message at some point that this is the thing that you should strive to be, or that it's not okay to be this, or even like if you want to be this and you're this, it's still, like even if you are a perfect square and you want to be a triangle, it's like, you know, your behavior isn't going to line up with what you actually are, and it's still going to be confusing. Hold on just a moment. Alright, so yeah, so there's enough. Thank you again, Christian. There's enough weirdness within a single person, probably to sink the entire universe. Like, I've been trying to figure myself out ever since I became self-aware, because as soon as I remember the moment of that self-awareness dawned upon me, and just be like, what the fuck is this? I'm not, there's no way that I'm going to survive if this is the way that I am. And I've been trying to figure it out ever since. And yeah, so like, there are a lot of contradictions with it. Like there are things that I'm trying to do that conflict with themselves. You know, like I want to be myself, but I also want people to like me and understand me. And those things seem like pretty far apart when I think about it. Or I don't know. I want to live forever, but I also don't want to feel bad things. Or it's possible to have a lot of conflicting goals. And then you add in elements of like variance and other people's weirdness and I don't know, just the fact that I don't know how to make good decisions yet, and it just spirals out of control. So another shape that we're going to be talking about today is spirals. If you don't know what spirals look like that. Spirals, it's like infinite spirals result from when, like, if you're weird and trying not to be weird, if you're not acknowledging the existence of a thing and trying to cover it up, it can sort of like circle back on itself. So take discomfort, for example. I'm very uncomfortable, and I know that there's sort of an empathy response in people to like feel uncomfortable on behalf of other people, and I might be making all of you as wildly uncomfortable as I am. And so even talking about discomfort is uncomfortable, which is sort of like, it creates like this mathematical weirdness, where if discomfort exists at all and you acknowledge it and try to do anything about it, you will create more discomfort, which compounds itself, and it's sort of like the weirdness thing, where if you're trying not to be weird, you end up being weirder and weirder and weirder until you can't explain yourself. Same goes with like fear. You know, it's possible to be afraid of how afraid you're going to be, and that's basically what suspense is. But yeah, it can also spiral out of control. And so it seems like I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at all the ways that I'm spiraling right now, and that I'm spiraling my life, and trying to learn from my mistakes. Because I tend to use mistakes, like the way I navigate through life is using mistakes as sort of a crude form of echolocation. It's like it's only slightly superior to the running into things with your face method of echolocation. But basically how it works is you just make a bunch of mistakes and sort of flee toward the area that feels less bad. And in doing that, I've learned quite a lot about infinite spirals. And it seems like a good way to handle infinite spirals is to try to prevent the beginning of an infinite spiral by like there's some amount of weirdness or fear or discomfort that is going to happen regardless. Like bad things happen, and it seems very uncomfortable to talk about it. It seems uncomfortable to talk about things like, like death or suicide or depression or anxiety or any of these things, because we're making them real. Or there's almost this fear that if you're like, there's a tendency to want to fix a problem as soon as you're aware that it exists, right? That there's a cultural idea that that problems shouldn't exist. That if someone is admitting to having a problem or admitting to being uncomfortable or scared or anything like that, that something needs to be done. And the problem with that approach, which is an approach I've taken most times in my life, is that it leads to, like, you're trying to solve a problem that you don't understand, and so you come up with these nonsensical solutions or things that feel like solutions or feel like they might work, and they seem to work in the beginning. You know, if you're trying to solve the problem here and, you know, the situation moves to here, maybe it's going to feel like there's progress because you're like going in a different direction. But what you don't know is that it's, you know, it's circling infinitely on itself. And if you look too close at things or try to solve them before you understand them, you're never going to see that this overall pattern. You're going to get stuck in this, you know, like trying to solve the problem here, and it feels like it's working because there's that placebo effect or the amount of relief that comes from like indulging in a coping mechanism, or just feeling like you're doing something, feeling like you have some amount of power over the universe, that you're making decisions, that you're exercising your free will, that you're, you know, that it's creating this illusion for yourself, and that works, you know, to provide that feeling that it doesn't actually do anything for what the problem actually is. Whereas if you could step back for a second and be comfortable looking at it, like if we could all somehow make it okay to talk about those deep, scary things that like seem so uncomfortable or seem like, you know, like, I don't know, I sometimes I feel like somebody could kill a puppy in front of me and my emotional reaction would be like really disturbingly like non-existent if I'm like really, really depressed, and that's concerning. But it's hard to talk about stuff like that because it seems like, you know, are you a monster? Do you not care about the puppy? Like, what's going on? Where really it's just, I don't know. Like, I remember my sister died a couple of years ago, and I didn't cry for maybe 2 weeks after it happened, and I felt awful. I wanted to talk to people about why that was happening, but there was this like, everybody else seemed to be able to cry, and I felt like maybe I was a monster, maybe there was something wrong with me, maybe I wasn't sad, maybe like, and so I just kept pretending, and it got weirder and weirder and weirder, and I felt sort of trapped in, you know, that spiral of not being able to process it. And yeah, so stuff like that where I would, it's tempting to like pretend, to like not acknowledge that, oh, this is the reality of what's happening because it's too scary. Because like, what if you say it and everybody, like, I'm standing up here saying a lot of things that are uncomfortable, and like, what if I find out that I really am as weird as I feel, and everybody else isn't that way, and I have to cope with that reality, and I'm sort of stranded in the desert of the real with the knowledge that, okay, I just admitted this thing, and now everybody's looking at me like, what, you wouldn't cry if a puppy died right now? Like, are you asking us to kill a puppy in front of you? What is going on? Like, this is getting more and more confusing. It's sort of becoming like a meta example of itself. Please stop. And if you guys ever feel like that, we can also turn this over to like you guys doing the Q&A for real. Just a moment. It's impulses like that like there are these assumptions. Thank you guys. It's stuff like that that makes, like, I had a very strong impulse to draw on both pieces of paper, and that's totally nonsensical. It was only I felt like I had to do it because the opportunity was there. Like, I had to get some value out of that experience or do something. I feel like I ended up living a lot of my life based on decisions like that I just, you know, oh, I'm going to draw on the piece of paper because it's there, or I'm going to do the thing that it feels like I should do. And I think that maybe that, yeah, this is what should, this is what we're going to talk about. I don't know why any of this is happening. I'm just as confused as you are.
still works.
So let's just go full bore with this. If it falls down from this position, I can sit on the floor next to it. If it falls down from the position of the floor, you'll know something really weird is going on. What should I do with this? Should I eat it? Alright, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty far down this path right now. Like there comes a point. Okay, so there comes a point in every person's life where like you can feel weird enough that in order to survive, you need to stop giving a fuck at all. And if you want me to stand on stage and eat a banana, I will do that. I did not think this is how this was going to go. Was that everything you hoped it would be? I like this crowd. There are very few expectations. You're welcome. I have more bananas. I've been stealing them. So another area of weirdness. Maybe I can just here we go. Here's another question. That is a suspicious setup, isn't it? I'm not scared. So, another question that it would be possible to ask, I guess not really a question, more of a statement or a request. Explain yourself. I feel like that's sort of what I've been trying to do my whole life. That's how I ended up in this position to begin with. Is this burn, like I've been weird since I can remember, and I had this burning desire to find some way to explain it or some way to make it intelligible to anybody. So that there's this feeling, because when you're really weird or feeling something that feels like especially one way, or maybe like it's more a way than anything else has ever been, you can feel sort of alone, and there's that desire to want to explain, to want to say, oh, I'm feeling weird because I made a bad decision. I'm in my 5th episode of major depression, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to survive, and I have celiac disease, and apparently there's nothing on this boat that I can actually eat except bananas. And I found that out by the hard way, where I developed a full body rash, which is why I'm wearing long sleeves in the tropics. Full body rash that gets worse with warmth. At a time when I'm wanting to hang out in my swimsuit. I haven't taken a satisfying shit for 3 days, and I've been trying to figure out how to do that without doing anything so weird that anybody might catch me and my life would spiral off into infinite weirdness from that point. Because it's possible to make a decision that's so weird that literally every decision that leads away from that decision is also weird. Like there's no normal decisions left once you're far enough down that decision tree. And your life's just weird from then on. You're just a weirdo. And I feel like that's what happened to me. That's sort of my explanation of myself. But I feel like we could turn this into a social experiment, maybe. Like I'm looking for, I've ceased feeling like I can actually do anything to change this. Like maybe I'm just weird. Maybe some things are just uncomfortable. Maybe some things are scary, and it makes more sense to try to figure out how to acknowledge that and make that comfortable, to stop the infinite spiral, to keep things, like, because things are only as scary or weird or uncomfortable as they are. There's just all this like auxiliary weirdness that spirals off of it, from like the like meta weirdness, meta discomfort, meta fear, the like thing becoming recursive on itself. And if we felt more comfortable, like if I felt like we could go hang out after this and talk about things that are genuinely uncomfortable, talk about that maybe I could learn something about you guys, that I could learn about ways that you're weird, maybe I would feel less weird, maybe we discover that, look, everybody actually feels like this, and this whole time we've just been doing all this pointless pretending, and maybe we can stop doing that. And regardless, you guys are sort of trapped on this cruise ship with me. So it's a good forum for that sort of like social experimentation, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think what I'm going to suggest is that after this, or maybe during this, if it spirals off into another like totally uncontrollable, unpredictable direction, I don't know what's going to happen yet. How can I possibly predict these things? You know, if you see me around and I look as weird as I feel, or ask me about it, or if you feel weird, feel free to tell me about it. Feel free to tell each other about it. I feel like we'd all be more comfortable if we were all just able to be like, God, I haven't shit in 3 days. I need to go hide out in the bathroom to give myself some alone time, lock myself in a stall for 3 hours, and just like think about whatever I want to create the illusion of freedom for myself. Or yeah, I'm going to wear a sweatshirt in 90-degree weather and not go in any of the pools or the ocean. What of it? And maybe that is how we can like make progress toward that elusive advice to like be yourself. Or if we actually talk about it, or you know, however awkward, like this is the most awkward possible way to approach the subject, but sometimes you just need to start. Right? Just like however you get to the topic, like just start it going. It doesn't matter, it can be clumsy, it can be weird, it can not make sense, but as long as we're aware that there's those like squiggly shapes out there, or maybe there are, I don't know, we're exploring this possibly. Some of us might be so weird that nobody has ever been that weird, and it's gonna be like space exploration or something. Well, I didn't know that could even happen. That seems like it's not possible to be that way. But that's cool. That's like I would love to learn about that. I would love to, and maybe instead of like trying to fit each other into the shapes and judging and being like, oh, why are you being that way? Is it because you're a dick? Is it because you're stupid? Is it because any of those things? That being aware that the real explanation is often far more complex than it's comfortable to admit that there isn't this simplicity, that there aren't these like dichotomies, that it seems like there aren't those like definite lines, and that's okay. That like or maybe it is okay. That's another thing, is that there's this pressure to like feel okay or present the image that you're okay. You know, if any of you asked me how I am, I would feel like I couldn't tell the truth. That if I said I've been like suicidally depressed within the last 2 months, it would be too concerning, it would be alarming, it would seem like, oh, this is a cry for help. How do we stop something? How do we stop this? And it would start that like solution loop before we could even talk about why it is or explore it, or like, because nobody knows what to do about that. If I knew what to do about that, I wouldn't have the problem if anybody did. It wouldn't. If I knew how to make myself happy, I would spend the rest of my life crumpled in a heap of bliss, not doing anything else other than that. Like. And I feel like that's the only logical conclusion, that like if we're all logical beings, then that's the only explanation. Like we would all do that. So if we aren't, we must not understand something, and maybe we should talk about it. Maybe it should be, I don't know. Maybe it should be okay to say that I feel awful in a particular way, or if somebody asks how your day is, to say, you know, not to like hijack their attention and make them beholden to your woes, but for it to be okay to say not so great, and have that not automatically lead to that instinctual need to solve or to do something about it. Because often the best intention is to help. Like, everybody wants to help everybody. I'm sure, like, we all want the best for each other. We're all trying to survive. We all have this empathy for each other. And if you see somebody being uncomfortable or struggling, or it seems like they're confused or something, the natural instinct is to help. I often, the most common question asked in interviews or like Reddit AMAs or whatever is like, how do you help a depressed person? But the same is probably true for like, how do you help an anxious person? How do you help anybody with any of these like psychological quirks or spirals or squiggles or whatever? And it's starting to feel to me that the answer is more, don't try to help, try to understand. Because you can't. You trying to solve a problem that you don't understand, that nobody understands, it just sort of obligates you to this trial and error approach where you never get past that initial level where everybody's saying, like, oh, this is the thing that worked for me, and not acknowledging that there's this other thing. They're like, I'm always reluctant to give advice about how to help a depressed person because, I mean, we're probably depressed in as many infinitely weird ways as we are just ourselves. You know, like maybe if I'm trying to help somebody who has a very different form of depression, by giving them advice on how to help me, that's not gonna work out so well for them. And so just this idea of being comfortable being uncomfortable, I think is maybe the point. That like there's a certain amount of discomfort that is just going to exist. And that if we know that that's there, if we realize and acknowledge that that's there, that we don't have to do anything about it right away, maybe there'll be enough room for it to breathe, to look at it and figure out how it works, figure out what it is. Let it inform each other, like learn from each other, because Lord knows I made enough mistakes that I could write 10 books just of the mistakes I've made. I don't have any answers, but I certainly I have a lot of data. I wrote that down. I was feeling very, very, very bad a few days ago. I mean, maybe a few weeks ago. I don't know. But it feels like I always come up. I'm always trying to solve things. You know, doing this thing I'm talking about, where it feels like if I just crack the code or figure out what makes me happy, what it is I want, what it is that everybody wants me to be, and how to be that, that I'll achieve this thing. And everything that I've tried, it comes to a point where it's like, oh, this isn't working, and I try to try something else, and I try to try something else, and it's like it's this horrible process of realizing that, you know, you're really far down this process that seemed like it was working, but it stopped, and you were wrong, and maybe everything you know is wrong, and it can feel very defeating. But the thing that I wrote down that is probably the most comforting thing that I've ever thought of on my own is there's no wrong data. Like, you can make as many mistakes as you want. There's only wrong interpretations. And so everything that you do, even if it's a mistake, even if it turns out like this, even if you have to get up there in front of a bunch of people and be as weird as you actually are, information is gained. And so maybe the priority should be, for at least a while, I don't know if makes sense to do it this way forever, but the information makes sense as a value rather than answers, just looking to generate data, interact in a way that leads to discussion, that leads to questions, you know, not trying to find an answer, but trying to find more questions, trying to make it more confusing before we're able to make it less confusing. Because I think that things are massively confusing. And yeah, it doesn't make sense to try to make them be simple. Holy cow, I've been talking for a long time now. Feel pretty good about that, maybe. I've accomplished something today. I don't know whether it was good or bad, but it was a lot of something. What? Yeah? You guys guys are liking this? Yeah. Fucking weirdos. Alright, so tell me if this is a bad idea, but I would like to make this maybe more dynamic, maybe involve you guys, and so normally like, Q&As are sort of fun to do, but it often gets focused on like the surface level stuff, and I feel like we're pretty far down this rabbit hole at this point, and we have a unique opportunity to to discuss some truly uncomfortable things. So I'm not going to necessarily ask, like, if you guys want to share something uncomfortable, we can talk about that. You can also ask me uncomfortable questions if you want. I'm totally willing, like, I'm in full-blown no fucks mode right now. We have a truly great opportunity, or at least an opportunity of some sort, in front of us. And I feel like maybe we should play around with it. I don't know, see what happens. Yes? Alright, so I was given a microphone to potentially give to you guys. Help! Please. There. Oh, alright, so let's talk. Let's
Go back to the should thing you were going to say.
Oh, the should thing.
I want to know what that's about. Because my therapist says that I'm shoulding all over myself all the time. I like that phrase. It's really good.
So I think that the main problem with should is that, like, at least as I understand, like, we try to make plans, we try to make these predictions, we try to figure out how things work, and as far as I can tell, reality doesn't give a shit about that. I can plan all at once. You know, there was this thing that happened. I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown by the time I got on the boat, and it only got worse from there. And in an attempt to prevent it, there was a meeting that all the performers were going to go to, and I sent Paul a text saying, I need to go sit in my room or bathroom stall or something for a couple hours and just like reset my brain or take a nap or something like that. And Paul was very accommodating, like he said, of course. It felt great that I was able to explain this or to ask for a thing that I needed and be given that thing. Unfortunately, so I settled down in bed, ready to take a nap, and over the loudspeaker, I hear that it is time for a drill, that my safety must be protected, and that there was an assumption about what was the biggest threat to my safety in that moment. And it felt very unfair. It felt like that I had been given this great gift and it was snatched away from me by these horrible boat people who were trying to make me conform to their system. I was very angry. I took a picture I was so angry that I took a picture during the security briefing just because they told me not to. Just as a way to sort of feel powerful again, because I felt like I was being stripped of my power, that I was being made to do this. I feel that the should thing is that trying to have a like rigid plan for reality, the things that we've come up with things that we think are going to make us happy or think are going to achieve the results that we think it should achieve, or ways that we should be. You know, like I had this, my identity is so entirely unreasonable and based on things like James Bond or like Liam Neeson and things that I'm never going to be. But like nonetheless, I feel like I should be that, or that I'm at least expected to. Like, there's so many layers of this phenomenon. There's like what I want to be or what I feel like I should be. There's what everybody else thinks I should be based on the clues that it seems. You know, like this is I look like whatever I look like, and that's a clue. You know, like I don't know. I spilled water on myself earlier. I'm trying to look for what the clues are. My toenails are painted yellow. So you could make assumptions about that. That means that you should be this thing, or. But we all have this idea that's sort of like self-justified, I guess, like because of we understand the universe and other people and everything through relating it to ourselves, right? Because we're the only real way that we have to understand anything about our own experiences, and so it can seem like this is the way it should be, or the things that are being told to me are the way it should be, and everybody like everybody should be that way, and if they aren't, there's something wrong, or they're, yeah, like I was saying earlier, either they're being a dick, or they're being stupid, or bad in some way. And I think that that's rarely the case. Like, I honestly don't think anybody's a dick, on purpose at least. Like, they're not actually. Like, there are no, like, nobody plays the villain in their own movie, right? So every decision that somebody makes sense to them. And it's useful to be able to view things like that. Instead, like if you're looking at something weird, you know, if you're looking at me up here or whatever, and thinking like, how does this sort of thing happen? How does this decision tree? Like, this doesn't make sense. This is not the way that anybody would deal with this. That like, it might not actually make sense, but the most sensible, as opposed to nonsensical question to ask is like, what the person who is seeming weird, what reason do they have for doing that? That there's almost this process of validating things, that like whatever experience somebody's having, it's real to them. So if you're scared of something, whether that thing is scary or not, like I'm terrified of bees. I stepped on a ground hornet's nest when I was maybe 3, and they all swarmed up my pajamas and stung me all over. And my friend Ryan had to go to the hospital, and it was horrifying. And I've held this like lifelong fear of bees. And for some fucked up reason that I don't understand yet, everybody understands being afraid of spiders, but they don't understand being afraid of bees, even though bees are basically spiders with wings that actually hate you. Yeah?
And now I'm afraid of bees.
See right there. I feel less weird already. That there's some like we have this genuine understanding moment where I felt, hey, somebody actually understands that experience. There's a I don't know, like I feel like we can have a very interesting conversation about that, about all the various ways that bees are terrifying, and why it doesn't work. If somebody's like, oh, it's more scared of you than you are of it, are you sure? I'm pretty scared of it. I think that I have more, like, at least my cognitive abilities give me a higher capability of experiencing fear. I can experience apprehension in a much more real way than a bee can, I'm pretty sure. Fuck bees. Hey, that's a good point. So see, like, there's another side to everything. Like, I'm also scared of spiders, which is important. Like, it seems unfair that you could be scared of spiders and bees. That seems like a thing that shouldn't happen. I think that's the concept that ties into the concept of should, which isn't the page that we're on, but like we're so off plan that it doesn't matter. But yeah, like this idea of, like, I find myself often feeling outraged at the unfairness of the universe. That like it seems like the luck should be distributed differently, or that if this thing happens, this other thing should happen to cancel it out. Or if I do this thing to like, that I think is going to be interpreted by somebody in a way that I feel they should interpret it and they don't, that there's like an offense to be had there. And like so many of the negative feelings I feel are a direct result of the universe not complying with the way I think it should be. Like it's and like I don't know though, like it shouldn't be anyway. It's probably chaos. There's no. I think my main problem is expecting things to make sense. Because I don't know what anyone do. But I think we rambled a bit, but we discussed should. All right. Did the microphone situation happen? Are we doing this plan, or does anybody want to talk about something uncomfortable? Yeah.
Hi. First, I didn't think that you were wearing your clothing because of anything like that. I thought you were just cosplaying like Red Riding Hood or something.
I like that as an alternate interpretation.
Yeah. So I recently, my grandmother is dying, and I went to see her, and the first thing that she says as soon as I walk through the door is, "Oh, Michael's here. You can give me my pill so I can die now."
Wow.
Yeah, so her children, of which my aunt and my uncle were there taking care of her, and obviously they're visibly shaken up by this, but I also think that she's waited long enough. She's been waiting for my grandfather to come home, and he died before I was born.
Oh wow, that's a long time.
Right, so I feel like I'm the only one who understands that she's tired.
And that's a very difficult position to be in, because it's those things like if you understand something that seems sort of ununderstandable, it can make you seem less understandable to the people who don't understand it. And so that's another benefit to this like, question and discourse thing, is like making it, because like I've been in situations like that where I'm having an atypical reaction, or I understand the reason for, like I understand how things can be one way and also another way, or that there's it's more gray area than it seems like it should be, and that can make you seem like a monster to people who don't, like they think that, oh well, like are you trying to kill your grandmother? Are you okay with it being like, it's sort of like the puppy thing, are you okay with this happening? Like, no, I would rather it not happen, but like I understand I definitely understand the idea of being tired. You know, like I'm only 30, and I've been so tired multiple times in my life that I wanted to end my life. And yeah, and those are exactly the sort of things that like I desperately want to talk about. I desperately want everybody to be able to talk about. To say that, like, you know, like I want to be able to talk to my mom and tell her that I'm not okay, but I know that that'll make her not feel okay. And there's just like the infinite spiral of everything feeling less and less okay. I don't know what to do about it other than to talk or to, I mean, yeah, it's tough, because if people, if they are opposed to something implied in their assumptions about why you feel that way, there's sort of that confirmation bias thing that happens, or it's like, if you're only willing to see one layer of reality, you're gonna be totally blind to the things beneath it. Like any of those are just gonna sound wrong, or and there are all these like, I don't know, cognitive biases that are at play, and yeah, I don't have any advice, but I hope that yeah, just being able to talk about it and acknowledge that, like, I don't know, it's good. It feels good to me to be able to talk to you about it, because I felt similarly. I felt that way about myself, about yeah. There's a wider range of reactions and interpretations than are recognized by people, and I think that's another bee accident.
I was being chased by a giant swarm of killer bees, and I pushed
killer bees?
Yes.
That's intense.
And I pushed my brother out of the way, and they stung the shit out of my back, and my back's completely almost.
Wow. I mean, that creates a lot of opportunities too, though. I feel like with weirdness comes opportunity, right? Like if you are a particular way that very few other people are, it's almost like having a superpower. Having a numb back, I can't think right now. Like I can think of all sorts of nonsensical things to do. Like I honestly sort of want to poke you and see if and see if you feel it. But that's very interesting and cool. Thank you.
Hi. Oddly enough, I also had an experience with bees, so not nearly as bad as
Are we all? Has everybody who's had a very negative experience, like a traumatic level experience with bees in a theater, raise your hand pretty high. Holy shit! Oh yeah. So who's had a positive experience with bees? Look at this like distribution of like randomness, like this. There's a good representation. Who's had a very neutral experience with bees? Like an extremely neutral experience with bees. Like you don't give a fuck what bees do. Okay.
and I, in here in New
talk, one of the things that came to mind for me, and I'm not sure exactly where I'm going with this either, is the notion of burning bridges or feeling burdensome by the way that one feels they naturally are. And this is not something I think I've spoken about much in this community at all. But one of the reasons that I really like being here, which is not to speak about any experience that you've had so far involving food or anything else, is that it's not only a welcoming community, and I really feel it is, but it allows me to escape what I feel is sometimes a socially awkward or complicated situation in my community home.
In your community home?
Yes.
So in what way does it feel like? What do you think are the aspects that make it that way?
Well, there are some people here who know me. My name is Sandy, for those who know.
I think
Oh my God. That's a lot of people. It's sort of that layers of presentation thing. Like, I'm generally a fairly bouncy, effusive, whimsical, very strange person, and I usually like that a great deal. I think there are ways in which that which makes me that way also makes me challenging to be friends with, to live with, to date, etc. And I'm sure that's true of a lot of people.
I definitely feel that way. That there's those internal contradictions or sort of things that seem like there's this drive to be self-consistent, or to fit into things that, like, if you're one way, there's that awareness that, like, I know that this signs me up for the package of being the other half of this. And I feel that way with depression all the time. I mean, like, sometimes I'm having a happy experience where we're like, oh, you're better, and it's like, no, I'm not. It's less bad today, and it creates this, like, very expecting everything to be uniform or to conform to the rest of what it seems like it should be. So it sort of leads to those things of, like, feeling misunderstood or feeling like there's an aspect of you that becomes confusing because of its contradiction with another aspect of you. That, like, it's almost like there's a feeling of disbelief or a feeling of, like, well, how do you explain this given the presence of that? And so do you feel like you're often in a position of justifying yourself?
Almost anybody who knows me knows that I'm fairly verbose, and I have I won't call it compulsive because I have to use a certain set of things, but I have a very strong desire to explain myself, and one of the things that people, that's why I clap so loudly when you mention that, is that one of the things somebody can do that's best for me, if I'm having trouble, is just letting me speak and feeling heard and understood.
What was that?
Feeling heard and understood in what I'm expressing.
I feel that drive too. That often it seems, and I think that might be another issue with that, like, problem-solving oriented way of thinking. Is that often there isn't, like, either the problem is unsolvable or it doesn't need to be solved, or it's actually, there are a lot of times where, like, I'm very uncomfortable, but I'm okay with how uncomfortable I am. I just sort of want to talk about it and put it in context, and so that, like, if somebody sees me being uncomfortable or weird, that it doesn't make them feel like that they understand why it's happening. And often, the communications of discomfort can feel like cries for help, when really they're cries for, like, understanding and just saying, like, I'm like this, I don't know how not to be. If I do anything that's weird, please understand it is due to this, and not any of the more common explanations for the thing. It seems like there are all these, like, common, like, the shapes thing, where they're common explanations for a behavior pattern that cover up all the, like, more complex reasons, all the things that, like, that we want to explain are like, oh, these are the internal conflicts of my personality. This is why this is hard. This is why, and it's not an excuse. It's not saying that I want to stay this way forever. But there's definite value in being understood, because it feels like once you're understood, you can let go of that anxiety of, like, how your contradictions seem like they might misrepresent you. Does that seem consistent with your experience of it?
Yeah, I think so. It's been an ongoing process learning when explaining is less beneficial to me than it may be harmful to the other person for whom the experience was negative. And not necessarily in that way, but, you know, in ways often out I'm sure
I
everybody
mean,
saw.
we all affect, like, we're sort of like, by existing together and having, like, you know, competing interests and goals and things, like, nobody's the same. And so we are going to affect each other. Like, that's one of those things that's like, we might very negatively affect each other without meaning to. Most negative affecting each other is without meaning to. And that's another thing that it seems like it would be good to talk about, just the, like, there's so much shame in that. You know, like, I feel awful when I feel like I'm negatively affecting someone, even if I'm not meaning to. Even if it's just a consequence of, like, the particular interaction between my specificity at that moment and their specificity at that moment. And I think that, yeah, being focused on that solutions thing or the blame or trying to figure out why something happened and form it in that neat shape prevents the understanding and compromise necessary to, like, to do both. It's often, it seems that there are a lot of false dichotomies. Like, it should either be this or this, and really it's something in the middle, and that middle option always exists, but you rarely communicate far enough to figure out what that is. Oh, sorry. How are we doing on? Oh, I've reached 0 on our timer. Are we? Paul, Storm, is this okay? Are we? Should try to wrap it up. One more question, or wrap it up? All right, we have to do a very quick question.
Let me ask this. Is everyone okay going without an intermission?
Yeah!
Okay, one more question.
And we can, I mean, like, we're on this boat together. There will be ample opportunities for us to all interact. And I mean, I feel like that's sort of the point of this, is to spur more questions.
This is real quick, just to kind of reassure you about one thing. There's many of us. How many people cannot really go in the sun here? Raise your hands. We all wear long sleeves and long pants in the sun. That's
You guys are awesome. Yes, I have a life for
and swim tights.
swim tights.
Yeah,
That's good news.
yes. And you're a new monkey, which love. So you don't know our community as well. How many people have some sort of mental, physical, or emotional problem that makes them very embarrassed to deal with people sometimes? We're very welcoming of all of those things.
Thank you guys. This turned out like I feel better. This was what it was. I hope it was at least interesting. And let's keep it going. If we interact later throughout this cruise, let's, like, cut to the real shit. Talk about the uncomfortable stuff. I would love that.
I agree with you absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, Allie Brosh. So get all your things. Do you want to take some of these CDs home with you? Thank you, Allie. I was going to use 2 microphones. No, that's fine. We have to do a quick stage reset for your good friends Paul and Storm. We were going to do an intermission, but I know what's happening. I'm listening to the same audio you're listening to. Let's get into it. So we're not going to do an intermission, but Paul and Storm wanted me to let you know that if you have to get up and pee, please do so, because it's the same show they always do. they maybe didn't say it in those words exactly. That's sort of my interpretation of what they wanted to say. Do they need an easel or no? Because we don't have one. Do they need an easel? Or are we taking that off?
Leave it.
We should leave it just in case. But I have to tell you. When you run a thing that's complicated, there are a lot of things that you anticipate might go wrong. I mean, there's a long chain of technical items that we rely on working correctly, and they're all very carefully tested and vetted, because what you don't want is for a technical failure to happen in the middle of the show. I don't think anybody thought to check the first easel. First easel, as you saw, the problem was that the paper wouldn't stay up in the clip because the clip wasn't tightened. The second problem with the easel is it had folding legs and no pins to keep them from folding. And then we had a backup easel. And then the backup easel also failed for reasons I don't fully understand because I haven't had time to examine it. One more thing I want to say about Allie Brosh is that Christian, who was holding up the easel for a long stretch of time, when I relieved him by bringing out the second easel, he was in tears because he was moved by what she was saying. So the whole time he was crying behind that easel, not the item, as a crier. But thank you, Allie, for all that stuff. This is definitely an audience that understands you, I think. Okay, the screen is halfway. No? Yes? Okay. Are we ready? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, Paul Storm.